Oh. Oh. Oh, gosh. Mitama, no. Oh, Mitama, save this show. This... Oh. Oh, bad. It's so bad. Kamikatsu sometimes looks bad. Like, really bad. But, is it on purpose? Did the director say, man, I want to make this look as bad as possible because it'll be funny? Or did the animation director tweet out, "Sore wa ato desu"? I think that's how you say it. No, not quite. Now, let's be realistic here. Kamikatsu's not the only anime that people question, is it intentional? And typically I shrug at the comments of, it's bad on purpose. Because in most cases, we don't really know. There's no people working on the project that's going to openly admit yes or no. Unless it's a case of somebody being really, really artistic with what they're doing. Say with Bocchi the Rock, where you have a director that's really trying to be extremely creative with so many shots and going way out of his way to create different diagrams and stuff to really throw in some artistic choice into it. But no, in most all cases, we don't get those statements. And to be honest, if it was intentional, I feel like that doesn't always make it right. Take, for example, Konosuba. This was a really, really popular show. When that show first came out, I felt like everybody was mad with how it looked. It didn't look good. But, of course, what saved that show was the expressions, it was the comedy, it was the writing, and it seemed like a lot of people kind of overlooked it and kind of shift their perspective to, well, it sort of adds to the comedy. These characters look so dumb that it's funny. The stupid wonky designs that could never stay on models sort of became its charm. But even then, I acknowledged it was not the best looking show, although it did go ham every now and then. Well, of course, jumping to now, this season we have 2 cases of people saying it's bad on purpose. One of which is drawing the most attention, and for a good reason, and that's Kamikatsu. In Kamikatsu, straight off the bat, first episode, we get the dreaded CGI monster, and it looked horrific. It didn't blend in with the environment, the art style was completely different, it just stood out like a sore thumb. And this progressed through the episodes as we've seen other dino monstrosities that looked like they were straight out of a PS2 game. The entire time, people were claiming it's intentional. It's supposed to look bad. That there was possibility these were otherworldly beasts that were sent to this planet and that they're supposed to look foreign. But this is easily disproven. If you look at the manga, there's no indication by art style or visual effect or filters that these creatures are different or separated from the world. They match the art style of the manga, and they match the environment, and they match the characters, and the detail, and everything. Thus simply, in my opinion, it was just cheap CGI, and unfortunately didn't add any sort of artistic value or comedy. It just looked bad. Sadly, CGI is expensive. Well, at least good CGI is expensive. And having somebody that's talented enough to make it fit your art style and fit the environment and look good inside of an anime is expensive. It takes skill. And sadly, a small studio, a fresh looking studio palette, isn't gonna have big resources or budget. But despite my feelings of being pretty sure that the CGI monsters is just cheaping out, it's just cost saving, we did sort of have a little bit of a shift of perspective when we got to the 4th episode. Sort of. The dreaded crop harvesting machine. Yes. The one that many people decided to show me while I was live streaming. And I immediately, when I seen that, I said, yep, that looks like it's intentional. Taking live action footage and literally just applying a filter on it and then slapping a character's face on the person that the live action footage was taken of, suddenly it went from lazy or bad to intentional. But, still lazy and cheap. I'm sorry, it's still lazy and cheap. Not necessarily that's 100% a bad thing. With this case, yes, we finally got some sort of feedback or confirmation on what exactly happened with at least episode 4 and the crop harvester. This was confirmed by the creator who tweeted out that, yeah, they had the director come to them and told them this idea of having live action footage of a crop harvester and then essentially superimposing it into the anime. And the creator thought that they were crazy when they heard that. So again, it's kind of one of those aspects of they literally went, hey, we got this cool idea. What do you think about it? And they're like, you're nuts. And so yes, that right there indicates to us that that was planned, that they thought of doing that. And it was all for the sake of comedy. It's crazy. And honestly, it didn't look too bad. Compared to the CGI monsters, decent at least. And yes, funny. It's just really having this character's face on it, and it literally is it's not even moving, and he's just yelling about how excited he is, and his character's not even moving. And this even went further in that somebody replied to that tweet saying, oh, cost saving measures. And the creator said, yeah, it saves cost, and it's playful. Fully accepting that this is, yes, some way that they're gonna cut corners, but it worked. So when it comes down to, is it intentional? Yes, it was intentional. This is all technically intentional. Every case where there's budget cutting and terrible animation, it's all technically intentional. The question is, though, is it what they originally would have wanted to do? That's the question mark. It's intentional. Yes. Is it cutting corners? Yes. Is it cheap? Yes. Make no mistake, quality typically means time. It means money. It means skill. It means artistry. Many things. And to save on that, you can use tricks to sort of produce both a cheap product, but also execute comedy. And that's what I think they essentially are going for. Whether that was the plan to begin with, or something they just threw together now in order to just get the product out. How to best serve the comedy, while at the same time, using bad CGI. Or, in the case of the crop harvester, basically rotoscoping, or at least applying to a filter to a live action. People are saying it's rotoscoping. It looks like live action with a filter. But of course, comes down to the big question. Do I think it's a good thing? Not entirely. When people said that CGI in the earlier episodes was story-based and intentional, I wasn't buying it. But make no mistake, when it came to the crop harvester, I thought it was done in a clever and comical way. The main key point is execution, pulling things off, and acknowledging when sometimes it's just the studio's being cheap. It's okay to admit that the show that you like isn't meeting the bar. For example, the other one that I mentioned earlier, I said there was 2 this season, is Magical Destroyers. Episode 3 looked not as good as the other episodes. When you compare it to episode 1, and especially episode 2, make no mistake, episode 3 wasn't that great. It just felt like there was so much in between these shots that just wasn't there. There was no creativity to the flow of the characters and the combat or the movement of the characters. It just felt like they were just trying to shift things across the screen. Add in that having the same shots over and over again, reused, poor CGI. And again, people that really like the show were saying it's intentional. I don't think it was. I just think they couldn't meet their schedule, or they just figured they would cut corners here. To be honest, with the end of the 3rd episode, it seemed like that was for a reason. They started getting crazy again. But the problem with that is that we're only in the 3rd episode, and if they're already sort of trying to pivot their production to a segment, that just shows me that here soon we're probably gonna get a delay. Do I hate bad CGI? Yes. Do I hate when things look like they're obviously falling apart animation-wise? Yes. Would I want every production to be smooth and beautiful every time? Yes. But I will admit that every now and then, when you do have a studio that's having problems, and a director is able to come up with an idea that is cheap, quick, and executes on creativity, I'll give him a praise for it. Intentional or not, it's all in execution. But the CGI monsters gotta go. The CGI monsters have got to go. And mark my words, they disappear for the Blu-ray, you'll know then. But I think they're probably gonna stay for the Blu-ray. They're not gonna reanimate all these scenes. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's just a lot of fun, just kind of digging into this and the concept of it's intentional. I would love to do a whole video on just like a different cases where I've run into really bad animation and just kind of criticize these companies for, in some cases, claiming this stuff is intentional, or people claim it's intentional when it's not. I mean, one of the prime examples that pops in my mind is like the last episode of Wizard Barristers with the guy shooting at nothing, and the whole last episode of Yusubu with that dragon flying around. Or Mikaku City Actors in general, just that whole show. No. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure that like button down below, comment. Let me know what do you think? Do you think it's intentional, unintentional, but still cheap? Or what is some of the craziest bad animation you've seen in anime? And don't write down X-Arm. We already know that one. And don't troll by saying Demon Slayer, but that fish in the recent episode, oof, those fish. Sometimes as much as Demon Slayer is amazing at animation, there's certain things they just can't pull off, like skeletons, blobs, and now apparently fish people. But if you're new to this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you got my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, and membership button down below. I greatly appreciate it, but support the channel. It's you guys that makes this all happen, and y'all take care.